Murder Between Neighbors. Right Club Mysteries. Written by Michelle Corbier. Narrated by Artemis Arthur. Chapter 14. Todd shifted weight between his legs, stuffing his gloved hands in the plush, warm coat pockets. Knock again. A minute had elapsed since the last time Ian knocked. She's not home. A 70-year-old woman has nowhere else to be on a wintry day like today. Well, what can I tell you? Bingo started early. Ian abandoned the front porch and headed for the next house. A moment later, Todd followed. I don't know where Mrs. Lula can be. At the next front door, Ian paused. Is that her name? Ian checked his notepad. Todd nodded. What's her last name? Frowning, Todd realized he had no idea. He had little time to consider it further as a woman dressed in a 1980s exercise suit yelled at them from one house over. They're not home! He and his partner left the house next to Mrs. Lula's and approached the shouting woman. Ma'am? She pointed at the house between hers and Mrs. Lula's. They both work. Leaning his head toward Todd, in a low voice, Ian said, Allen. Good morning, Mrs. Allen. May we speak with you a moment? After scrutinizing them with a heavy scowl, Mrs. Allen invited them inside. Whatever he thought about his hostess, Todd couldn't complain about her housekeeping. The floors glistened. The 1950s furniture appeared utilitarian, though not comforting. From the corner of his eye, Todd glimpsed a cat scamper across the floor and into the kitchen. Accepting a seat on a firm couch facing the front door, Todd said, We're re-interviewing neighbors. Figure out what killed Lowry? She asked, observing Todd's wet shoes. The investigation is ongoing. Humph, she sniffed. Police always say that. Means you know, but won't tell. Mrs. Allen shifted her narrow body along the Empire chair. An electric yellow headband swept graying brown hair off her long, sloping forehead. I could have told you he'd been murdered the first day. Leaning forward, Ian asked, Anything you tell us, we'll keep private. She chuckled. I don't care if these people know I spoke with the police. Serves them right. If you don't want people to discover your sins, don't sin. Her nose inched higher as she crossed her bony legs and reclined into the chair. She had a point. Todd sat up straighter. Who do you suspect? My first suspect would be the doctor lady. She had motive. Todd recoiled slightly before reasserting his stoic demeanor. Which doctor? A sinister grin formed along Mrs. Allen's mouth. Only one doctor in this cul-de-sac, which you know very well. Her eyes twinkled. He fought not to blush. Tell us, Ian said, side-glancing at him. You should have seen her. Looked like she could have ripped Lowry in half. When? Todd asked, barely finding his voice. Day the cops arrived. They 'bout shot her dog. Mrs. Allen snarled. Nasty beast. Don't like anything in my house that can't bathe itself. Says the cat lady. Todd had spotted 3 different felines since they entered the home. The dog is aggressive? He asked, tapping his fingers along the chair cushion. No, Mrs. Allen admitted softly. Just who would want a hairy beast slobbering and shedding all over the place? Can't understand people with pets inside their house, unless it's a cat. Now, I grew up... Did you see Dr. Douglas on the day Mr. Lowry died? Ian asked. Relieved Ian ended the diatribe, Todd tried to focus on the interview and not on his reaction to what Mrs. Allen had said about Maisha. No, she got home after Patsy called the police. But she writes murder stories. Believes she's Patricia Cornwell. Huh. She'll never sell anything. Turning toward Todd, she asked, Is that why you're at her house all the time? You suspect her? Or is it something else? If you could focus on what happened on the day of the murder, Todd said, too defensively to be benign. Don't get huffy. Mrs. Allen straightened a pillow which had fallen on its side. Be careful. Her regular boyfriend is a firefighter. He could break your twiggy body in half. She laughed. Noticing Ian fighting to suppress a grin, Todd's jaw twitched. What did you see the day of the murder? Mrs. Allen recounted the morning of the murder from when she awoke until the police arrived. 2 cats slunk into the living room, curling around her legs. Ian balanced the notepad on his knee. You saw a gardener? Believe so. Her brow creased in thought. What about this gardener? Todd asked. Her gaze widened. Nobody on this street employs a gardener. Mrs. Allen regarded them both in turn. Several witnesses reported a gardener on the street the day Mr. Lowry died, walking out the cul-de-sac and around the corner. A tiny grin crept up Mrs. Allen's face. I know. Interesting, isn't it? Todd gritted his teeth. Though she could be a valuable witness, Mrs. Allen irritated him. Not simply because of her poor fashion sensibility and cats, but her acidic appraisal of everyone and everything. Realizing she had noticed his time spent at Maisha's house, before and since the murder, didn't improve his opinion of her. But she knew details and didn't mind sharing with the police. Put your emotions aside and focus on her narrative. Gardener no one hired, at least according to the community busybody. With him preoccupied, Ian said, You mentioned other goings-on in the neighborhood? Preening, Mrs. Allen uncrossed her legs and eyed Ian. Bed hopping, if you ask me. Who? She chuckled, and the cats dispersed. Most of them. In an aside to Todd, she said, But not the doctor. At least she has some standards. This time, Todd knew he blushed. Ian clicked his pen and opened his pad. Back to the bed hopping? Adjusting her body toward Ian, Mrs. Allen said, The Stillwells and the Lowrys were close until, maybe 2 years ago. Know what happened? Ian asked, glancing up from his notepad. Once I asked Tiffany. She said their schedules changed. Mrs. Allen clicked her teeth, or dentures. I bet they grew tired of Patsy. She's a stupid woman, completely useless. Can't even control those deviants she conceived. The kids who burned Dr. Douglas's fence. She shot Todd a glance. So, you heard about that. The doctor was furious. Jared promised to fix a fence. Of course he never did. Mrs. Allen relaxed against the seat cushions when a 4th cat leaped onto her lap. That's what made your girlfriend mad. Todd took a deep breath. Why would one of the Stillwells want to kill Mr. Lowry? Regarding him as if he were daft, she said, That's your job. Using the notepad, Ian covered the bottom of his mouth. Anything else you wish to share, ma'am? Todd said, disregarding his partner's antics. No. She removed a speck of lint from her pants leg. I would think you already had enough information to discover the murderer. Todd rose and shook her hand, avoiding the cat's paw. Thank you for your time. He handed her a card. Please call if you remember anything else. She placed the card on a salver in the center of a coffee table. I doubt there's more I can tell you. Nothing associated with the murder, at least. Todd appreciated the hint in her statement, but decided not to pursue it. He had no interest in gossip unassociated with the homicide. Besides, Mrs. Allen might mention something about his time spent at Maisha's. He knew Ian would bring up his involvement with a potential homicide suspect. Were you at the neighborhood meeting last Tuesday? Todd asked as he followed her along the foyer. Wednesday, she said over her shoulder while unlocking the front door. His shoulders bristled. Yes, Wednesday. Why should I? It was too cold for eating pizza outside. She adjusted her headband. They probably didn't invite her. A waste of time. Every year there's a meeting to discuss the Christmas lights competition, and each year the cul-de-sac declines to participate. Besides, I don't bother with Christmas decorations. It raises your utility bill and clutters the attic. I understand. Even Abigail stayed home this year. Abigail? Todd asked. The cripple. He winced. Mrs. Tipton, Ian said to Todd. Roger usually wheels her outside, but even she had enough sense to stay home. As Todd exited, Ian asked, Do you sincerely consider Dr. Douglas a suspect? Shaking her head, Mrs. Allen said, She's too smart. This murderer hadn't planned well. They let y'all discover the poison. The doctor is clever. Y'all wouldn't catch her. Well, thank you again, Ian said. You have a lovely home. Their hostess failed to appreciate Ian's sarcasm. Now it is. The place looked a positive wreck when my husband was alive. Sorry for your loss, Todd said. The man probably died to get away from her, or the cats. I'm better off. When my sister introduced me to my husband, he had been the quietest, most reserved man I ever met. She shook her head. As soon as the minister said, I do, the man never shut up. Mrs. Allen stood on the threshold. Birds, she snickered. He would talk all day about birds. At least his binoculars came in handy. Way to turn a tragedy into a nightmare for her neighbors. Surprised he didn't die from psittacosis. He frowned. Psittacosis. An infection caused by bird droppings? She sighed. I suppose police officers aren't required to have college degrees. This time, Ian bristled. Good evening, ma'am. Todd started to leave. Following him, Mrs. Allen added, By the way, why did y'all let the old lady leave? He frowned. Mrs. Lula? Mrs. Allen sniffed. What a silly moniker. Have you noticed how she avoids providing a surname? Perhaps she values her privacy, Todd said, cold and ready to leave. I asked her once, Mrs. Allen said, gazing over his shoulder. A quarter of a minute of silence elapsed. And? Told me to mind my business. Mrs. Allen slammed the door. Good. His appreciation for Mrs. Lula soared. Todd headed for their vehicle. 30 minutes with Mrs. Allen had left him exhausted. Where are you going? Ian asked. Oh, sorry. Todd shook his head. That woman knows what goes on in this cul-de-sac. Such venom. Usually, you would appreciate the information. Ian tucked the notepad in his breast pocket. Perhaps this case is hitting too close to your personal feelings. Todd jutted in front of Ian, causing the latter to stop precipitously. Are you accusing me of something? Ian laid a hand on Todd's shoulder. Make sure your emotions aren't clouding good judgment. With that, he marched up to Mrs. Lowry's front door. Chapter 15. As he left the shelter of Mrs. Lowry's covered entryway, Todd slipped on his gloves and shuddered. The wind is picking up. Where do you think the widow went? Making funeral arrangements or picking up the kids? Todd glanced up at the gray sky. We'll interview her tomorrow. Ian zipped up his overcoat. Want to head back downtown? Not yet. For a minute, Todd surveyed the neighborhood, considering where to head next. He glanced at Maisha's house while Ian wasn't looking. Might as well hear from the other party. The Stillwells? He nodded. After a half-dozen knocks and doorbell rings, the door jolted open. Yes, demanded a tall, athletic woman wearing headphones. We have a few questions, Mrs. Stillwell, Ian said, flashing his badge. A moment later, after fumbling with his gloves, Todd flashed his. Mrs. Stillwell took a moment to read both badges. I've already told you everything I know. But we have new information, which brings more questions. Her gaze fastened on Ian. Oh? Todd observed her, unsure if Mrs. Stillwell's excitement demonstrated concern or curiosity. Many people relished murders. Like, "Can we come inside?" Ian asked. "It's chilly out here." "I have a meeting in 5 minutes," she said, slightly closing the door. "We'll be quick," Ian said, sporting a smile full of teeth. Unimpressed, Mrs. Stillwell didn't budge. "What have you discovered?" Todd observed her shorts and tank top. She clearly hadn't been outside in months. "May we come inside?" he said, blowing on his hands to encourage entry. Mrs. Stillwell drew the door closer to her side. "Come back later. I finished work. We wanted to know about your threesome with the Lowrys." The flush extended from Mrs. Stillwell's gaping mouth to her hairline, giving Todd the response he desired. "Who told you that? The old crow across the street, right?" "We can't divulge a witness," Todd said, as Ian removed a notepad from his coat pocket. Rushing outside, Mrs. Stillwell hustled down the walkway and gave a middle finger salute toward Mrs. Allen's house. "Get a life, you hateful shrew!" she shouted. A moment later, she hurried back inside. Todd noticed her bare feet. She must be furious. "Well?" he asked, hoping now they would be permitted inside. "Well, what?" Mrs. Stillwell glanced down at her wet feet. "Damn it." "Did you have an intimate relationship with the Lowrys?" "Absolutely not. How outrageous!" A snarl convulsed her features. "These ridiculous fantasies! Mrs. Allen wishes someone would invite her to a threesome. Pure fiction. That vicious woman is going to be found guilty of libel one day." "I believe you mean slander," Todd said. Oblivious to his comment, Mrs. Stillwell mumbled, "The police ought to look into her husband's death. Now that's a mystery. Finding healthy one day and drops dead the next. And she received his life insurance. Spends all her money on those cats. Mr. Allen died of cancer. She hated him. Probably poisoned him and made it look like cancer. No one conducted an autopsy, did they?" Todd's brow furrowed. "Do you actually believe she murdered her husband?" "All I know is one day he talked about buying a parrot, and the next day he died." She smirked. "By the end of the week, she threw out his stuff. That cow didn't waste time mourning." Ian glared at her. "Don't believe me?" Mrs. Stillwell pointed her head to the right. "Interview Maisha. She'll tell you." Looking at Todd, she said, "You two seem cozy. Ask her how Mrs. Allen treated her husband." Silenced by Mrs. Stillwell's comment, Todd retreated a step. Ian asked, "Then the late nights at the Lowrys?" "We played cards, board games, family activities after work." Straining her neck to see around Ian, she yelled, "Some of us have jobs! My husband is a lawyer!" Todd followed her gaze. Mrs. Allen stood on her threshold, watching. She has no qualms about spying on her neighbors. He needed to be more cautious about visiting Maisha, at least until he solved this case. Not that they engaged in anything improper, but because he didn't want to give the appearance of partiality during this homicide investigation. Or was there truth to Ian's suggestion? "How frequently did you and the Lowrys have game night?" Ian said, inching closer to the open door. "Who knows?" She shrugged. "I didn't keep count. It was simple neighborly fun." "But things cooled off recently." Ian made a statement more than a question. Mrs. Stillwell's thin nose reddened. "Longer than that." Half a minute passed while she appeared to be recalling something. "Jared lost a major client, started working longer hours, or at least he stayed out later. Our family get-togethers decreased, then gradually stopped." "When?" Her arms drooped. "Let me see." She glanced upward. "Probably 2 years ago? Maybe less." As Ian's questions continued, Todd checked his watch. Clearly the comment about a meeting had been a lie. They'd been talking for around 20 minutes. "Do you have any ideas about Mr. Lowry's death?" he asked as his partner jotted down notes. A sudden solemnness made Mrs. Stillwell's shoulders stiffen. No, I don't. She hesitated. I feel bad for Patsy. Neither Todd nor Ian spoke. To fill the silence, Mrs. Stillwell said, She's fragile. I don't know how she'll get along without Jared. From inside the house, something pinged. Sorry, I have to go. Without a goodbye, Mrs. Stillwell shut the door. On the way back to their vehicle, Ian said, Who do you believe? There's a little bit of truth in both their stories, Todd said, starting the ignition. Back to the station? Ian asked, warming his hands under the air vent. Sure. Todd exited the cul-de-sac. Oh, wait. I need to stop by an ABC. You? Ian chuckled. When did you start drinking? I'm not going to drink it. Not directly. It's for a fruitcake. Your girlfriend is making you a fruitcake. Ian made puckering noises. Concentrating on the traffic to drown out his partner, Todd muttered, She's not my girlfriend. Then what is she? She's just a friend. Drumming on the dashboard, Ian sang, Ooh, baby, you got what I need. But you say she's just a friend. But you say she's just a friend. You can't sing, Todd said, glancing out the side window. As they returned to the station, Ian laughed and continued singing Biz Marquee, He's Just a Friend. Despite his comment, Todd wondered if Maisha considered him as simply a friend. He certainly considered her more than an acquaintance. She had a boyfriend, a substantially built, muscular boyfriend. However, the fireman didn't concern Todd. It needn't interfere with his relationship with Maisha. But how did she consider our association? Should I ask? What if her answer wasn't what I wanted to hear? Sometimes, he mused, ignorance could be bliss. Chapter 16. As her private office door slowly opened, Maisha looked up from the computer. Hey, lady, Denise said. Ready to go? Maisha locked the computer screen and grabbed her purse. Sure, I can finish charting later. Where you want to go for lunch? Denise asked, holding the door open. Waving to her staff, Maisha departed from the rear door. I don't know. Nothing interests me. Worried about who murdered your neighbor? They exited the office from the rear and entered her Honda. What? No. Frowning, Maisha buckled the seatbelt. I'm worried about my staff. Things have been awkward in the office. Because of that pervert? Denise asked, choosing among radio stations before stopping on Oh Holy Night by Heather Headley. That's one problem. Maisha paused as she turned left out of the parking lot. No, I'm worried about how they treat each other. In answer to Denise's knitted brow, Maisha explained how the medical assistants had teased Dina. She's still struggling with the OCD? It's better, but she can't give up the hand washing and gloves. Did you talk to your staff? Briefly. Her shoulders shrank. I thought I hired people who reflected my values. They were actually mocking Dina. Cruel. Exactly. Maisha glanced across the car. How did I miss that part of their character? People change. I don't agree. There must have been a morsel of unkindness inside them I missed when they were hired. You're being too harsh on yourself. And them. Maybe I'm not such a good judge of character. Incidents from the past year came to mind, especially regarding the death of her college roommate, Candace, a woman she had lived with for years and loved like a sister, whom Maisha had discovered led a dangerous life, culminating in murder. Denise touched her arm. Hey, I know what will cheer you up. Let's figure out who murdered your neighbor. Who cares? Maisha tapped her fingers on the steering wheel as they waited at a stoplight. You adore solving crimes? No, I don't. Have you forgotten the last 2 murders we solved? Denise asked primly. I remember almost getting shot. Twice. Dismissively waving a hand, Denise said, You focus on the negative. She squirmed in the passenger seat to face Maisha. So, who do you consider to be the most likely murderer? Dee, I seriously don't care. What's with you? Pulling over to the side of the road, she glared at Denise. He tried to get Boomer killed. His badass kids burned my fence. He is dead. 3 kids lost a father. A moment elapsed before Denise said, Patsy became a widow. Maisha gave a slight shrug and re-entered traffic. She's probably better off. Wow. Denise guffawed. Who's the unkind person now? You don't understand. True, Jared could be an ass, Denise said, holding up a finger. But Patsy is your friend. The children are the product of their rearing. If Patsy and Jared were indulgent, undisciplined parents, what can you expect? Patsy should have left him a long time ago. Judgmental much? Glaring at her friend, Maisha said, I have other things to worry about. Is this about you and AJ? Is that why you're in such a bad mood? I have a lot going on. Oh, poor baby. Welcome to life. Why are you being mean to me? Because you are judging your staff for being cruel and inconsiderate, but aren't looking at the woman in the mirror. Denise gazed out the side window. Maybe your staff are more like you than you realize. In the intervening silence, the radio played Love by Music Soul Child. That's out of bounds. All I'm saying is, you shouldn't focus solely on problems or forget blessings. Or are you one of those people who only pray about what you want and forget to give thanks for what you received? Maisha made a scrunched face. Denise blew her a kiss. 'Tis the season to be thankful, Scrooge. Counting on her fingers, she said, Let's see. You are healthy, employed, financially stable. Okay, I get it. Have a son who loves you and a sexy as hell fireman boyfriend who worships you. Does he? Denise gawked. Why, did he do something to make you doubt his affection? In the restaurant parking lot, Maisha shut off the engine and laid her head on the steering wheel. I don't know. Don't know if AJ loves you or how you feel about him. Pressing her lips firmly together, Maisha looked forward as tears clouded her eyes. Scooting across the seats, Denise gave her a side hug. Hey, talk to him. AJ will understand. Maisha chuckled. Would he? If he knew what she was thinking, would he understand? Would he forgive her?